Recently, I made a video showing 3 different ways how we prepare and how we plow our garden or our farmland in northern Uganda. And if you are someone who is actually thinking of venturing into agriculture and venturing into farming, especially crops farming, because that's what I was talking about, I told you that you need the land because, or at least a piece of land, because that is necessary for your crops. And this does not only applies to crops, same way also applies to even animals. Let's say you want to do goats farming, for example. You cannot rear goats just anywhere in the space, as I had initially said. You need to have a land, and there's actually the type of land that there are things you need to consider before picking the land, or while looking for the land you need to consider a few things. So in today's video I want to break down everything that you need, because when I made this video I talked about 3 ways we use, and someone who is new into farming or who is a beginner may be asking, and actually I had some people who reach out. That is why I decided to make this detailed video explaining to you uh, ways that we use to prepare our garden or our farmland in Uganda and in northern Uganda, to be specific. And this starts from getting your land when the land is maybe having a lot of grass, shrub, and all those. So starting with the first step, always the first step is to get the land. And how do you get the land? Especially in northern Uganda, there are different ways of acquiring land here, and one can be through buying it. You can just come, if you have money, you look for that specific type of land you want, if it meets your requirement, or if maybe you want it near the water or something like that, near the road. All those factors you always consider. You start by acquiring land, which is either by buying it or by renting it. That's the amazing thing about land in northern Uganda. If you want to do farming, even if you don't have a land, you can actually go and talk to people in the community, people who have land, and then they can rent it out to you. So we actually personally have helped people get land here, and if you want, my number is always in the description. I can as well help you. So those are 2 ways. You either get the land by buying it or by renting it. And you now have the land. What else? What is the next step? So I know I'm making this video because you could probably not be in Uganda right now, not in northern Uganda right now, but you are planning of starting to put something in the garden, or you want to do farming, and you have someone you trust who is managing it on your behalf. I want to give you the picture, to give you the idea, so that you can understand what exactly happens. Now you have the land, and what next? Another thing is to, of course, prepare the garden. Now when you acquire the land here or the garden here, there are two things that you need to know. One, there are certain types of land that are actually very fresh. I would call it virgin land, and that is a land that has never been touched. And so what does that mean? It means you have a lot of work to do in it. You have to clear trees, you have to clear some big stumps, and then grasses, shrubs, and all those. And it's not a 1 day thing, it's not a 2 days thing, or sometimes it may not be a 1 week thing, depending on the size of land that you have acquired. So you have to follow all the process. I talked about 3 ways we use to prepare our land, and of course I mentioned about using a tractor, using ox flour, and then using just human labor, because we have people in the community who can always prepare your garden or do your garden work, like preparing, putting seedlings and all those. Then you pay them some amount of money depending on how they do it in that village or in that community. So if you have your land and it's a virgin land, let's say, you have to start the process by first of all clearing those big trees, or the shrubs and the grasses, because there are some big ones that tractor cannot even plow, or ox plow cannot even plow. So if you are thinking of preparing your garden, you need to actually make sure, and preparing your garden and you want to bring tractors or ox plow, for example, you need to make sure that there are certain things that are not in that land or in that garden, like the big trees, for example. So now that is what will require you to hire some men, or if you can do it by yourself, you can go with the pangas, go with the axe, and all those to clear them. So you need to understand how that one works, because you don't just get a piece of land, or let's say it's a fresh land, then you just bring ox flour or a tractor on it. And if you are watching this maybe for the very first time, I'm going to repeat it to you so that you get the idea. There are three main ways that we use here to clear our garden, and I'll be showing you practically. Just keep on following this video, which is one that I personally recommend, depending on your capacity and the resources that you have, is a tractor. And you can bring in the tractor in your garden, and at least I've seen tractor working on people's garden, in some of my clients' garden, and they do perfect work. As long as you're there, you're supervising, they do perfect work. And a process that you need to know: preparing a garden or preparing a farmland takes time, so you need to be patient about it. For example, if you're coming, then you want everything done within few days, I'm afraid that may not be possible. Farming, everything, just like in life, farming also, everything is a process. So you have to clear the garden, and maybe you work on it 2 or 3 times, and yeah. So second thing that we use is ox plow, of course. Now, why ox plow? I personally have used it in one garden, and I know at least it's perfect, because it does more of like tractor. But then the advantage about it is that it is cheap actually. Those ox plow guys normally don't ask for a lot of money. But of course, tractor would be understandable, because we understand it has to use fuel, drivers to be there, and maybe it may have to come from far, so it's quite understandable. How much does tractor cost to plow your garden? In my community of northern Uganda, at least most places I've gone to, if you are to bring in tractors in your garden, normally they charge 1 acre, they charge around 120,000 Uganda shilling. So some may be way less, but some may be way more, depending on how you talk to them, and also depending on the size of your garden or the size of your land. So that is one thing you have to know. And how about ox flour? How much do they ask for? Normally they don't actually ask for too much. I think it's more of the same also. If you're measuring in terms of acres, it's more of the same as tractors, or it can be a little less, but it depends on who you talk to, and how the agreement is, because all this thing is all about how you talk to the people. So if you have a farm manager, for example, you can just, tell them to talk to these people and they can always reduce for you. Then lastly, another ways, common ways that we use is by using the law command. In every villages, every community, people have what is called O. O is of different types, like I know like two types maybe, depending. But we have the community of Acholi, the community of Lange. So I'll try to show it to you. So it's more of the same, and normally they charge around maybe 2,000 or 3,000 depending on the size, but there's a way they measure it in terms of feet. They call it katala in ear, where they have a long stick where they measure and they can do 2 by 5. That can be around 2,000 or 3,000. It just depends. It always varies. So those are ways that you can actually use to prepare your garden and or to prepare your farmland, and it will be amazing, and you can put in your crops or put in whatever that you actually want to put in. And my name is Layoo Charles. This is the Ugandan farmer. I bring to you farming videos and farming stories throughout Uganda, throughout northern Uganda. I appreciate everyone who is always reaching out for advice, and you want to get the land or you want to know anything concerning farming in northern Uganda. I'm always available to help you. I'll keep on bringing you some of these tips and showing you practically, and I'll be visiting farmers across Uganda, farmers across northern Uganda. So it's just amazing venturing into farming actually. So if you are thinking of starting, please go ahead and start. Another farming tips that you need to know about getting land, for example, if you have a plan to do farming next year or next season, because this season is already getting done, I would advise you to start getting your land, whether you want to buy or whether you want to rent. Start doing it a little early, because most people who wants to do farming next year, they are already securing their land right now. And thank you for watching this. I hope it has helped you. Please be sure to like, to subscribe, and of course I would really love to see your thought in the comment section. I'll see you in our next video.